Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome to the second episode of the Controlled Interest Gamecast. Thank you guys for listening and tuning into the first episode. We really appreciate all the support. And so we're going to be getting into it here. I'm here with Jordan.
Hashtag smash the dunst.
And Dominic.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And so before we get into the news, guys, we want to have a little discussion about what we're playing. So, Jordan, what have you been playing as of lately this last week?
So, I actually haven't played video games in probably about 3 or 4 days. But before that, I was playing Far Cry Primal. And I think it's safe to say I'm not quite at the 10-hour mark with that one. But I think it's a pretty boring game.
Really?
And it's not just because of the fact that you don't have guns, but that is yeah, it's cool to have animal companions and crap like that. But really, I mean, in a Far Cry game, you need some guns, I think is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it has a Far Cry name, but it doesn't feel like a Far Cry game.
In a way, yes. I mean, it feels like a Far Cry game because it's literally the map copied over from Far Cry 4.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like redefining the name Reskin. But it's not just like, oh, I have to read subtitles or, oh, I only have these animal companions. It's kind of a combination of everything, and it ends up feeling like just a completely different game that should have been called Primal something or whatever, you know? And so it's kind of boring. I'll keep playing it just because I always like having like a big open world game that I can just go and screw around in while I'm watching podcasts or whatever.
Just to be doing stuff.
Exactly, but I don't think I'm gonna I'm not in love with it. So it kind of like, you know, sometimes you play games and they kind of suck and you're just like, screw video games right now, you know. So
just take a chill pill.
I think I'll be playing Mass Effect. I've already started it, but I'm really open to yes, Mass Effect 1. I had started it way back when on 360, but I'm trying to get through the trilogy before
have you ever played
Andromeda comes out. Like I said, I had started it on 360, but maybe got like 10-ish hours in.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I need to go through the trilogy, and I'm hoping to like really dig into the first one.
I kind of actually envy you of being able to play that game for the first time, because that's obviously my favorite franchise, so that's
People
cool.
are always talking about like video games we wish we could play again for the first time, and they always say Mass Effect. I'm like, I'm glad I have that, you know?
Right. So for me, I've been playing Smite, as always. I love that game. MOBAs are for nerds, so I guess I'm a nerd by that definition. I play that game all the damn time. It's addicting, and I have a problem, and I need to go to rehab. But other than that, I finished Life is Strange. Great experience. Probably one of the best, like, simplistic stories I've played, where it's not like there's not a lot of gameplay there, but it's just a great story, right? Kind of in the vein of Gone Home, but it has a lot more gameplay, I think, than Gone Home. I finished that, great, and then I've actually been playing Pokemon Yellow, so Nintendo got me in buying the same damn game again with nothing new except for being able to access the Pokebank. And I'm actually, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but early on in Pokemon, you can get a Mew, like legitimately. You have to have an Abra, and you have to like hit this one trainer, teleport, come back, run up, hit this other trainer, and I'm having the toughest time because I don't have a Jigglypuff that's fast enough to use Sing before an Abra uses Teleport, so I've just been in this loop of trying to catch a Jigglypuff that's fast enough so he can hit before an Abra so I can get the Abra so I can do the glitch. So I've been stuck in this little loop for a little bit, but it's really nostalgic. It's really cool. It's just kind of like feeding my addiction of Pokemon until Sun and Moon come out. But I'm having a blast with that.
You said it's like beginning of the game, right?
Yeah, it's like second city, Cerulean City, I believe, where you fight Misty.
Yeah, so I think the way I would always get Abras back then is since they're still really low level, I would just kind of like walk in that area of grass that they always show up in, and they are kind of like rare, but you just keep throwing a Pokeball the first time, like you don't even try to attack them or anything, and then eventually you'll get lucky and catch one.
I might just try that, because at this point it's getting frustrating, you know?
It works, dude.
Yeah. Dom?
So I've actually recently taken a break from Fallout 4 and jumping a little bit outside my comfort zone and dove right into Fire Emblem Fates. Um, which it's been fun, but we're gonna get into that later. I do want to say, so me and my wife went and saw a movie last night. I don't know if you guys are into horror movies. We went and saw The Witch.
I need to
Alex.
watch that. I heard it's supposed to be really good. Yeah.
So
It's awesome.
yeah, I read a couple reviews and oh, it's great, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's much different. It doesn't follow the same the same garbage that every other scary
the
movie
tropes?
throws at you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it virtually has no jump scares.
Right.
And it does a lot with the music is really well done and the atmosphere it creates is super creepy, but I don't know, it's just the ending wasn't satisfying for me, and I don't know, it wasn't quite creepy enough consistently. There was one part in particular where I was like, oh man, that's whoa. I don't want to say too much, but ultimately, yeah, I was kind of disappointed. I thought it would be much better, but yeah, it was definitely interesting. It was a little different, but yeah.
I think it has. You haven't seen it, right, Jared?
The Witch, no. It's on my list of things to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and saw that after I saw Deadpool the other day, which was just like the best day ever. Which is an awesome movie. I think at first I wasn't in love with it, basically because of what you were saying, Jared, of how really it shouldn't have been marketed as a horror movie because it really kind of isn't. And I think
Yeah, definitely.
that hurts it when you're watching it, But if you can kind of put that expectation aside and just like it for a kind of more like a psychological thriller, I think it really works as a psych thriller because it does have some parts that drag and some slower areas that are honestly boring straight up, but the atmosphere that you talked about, the creepiness that
Yeah.
it gets under your skin and it makes your skin crawl in a way that you don't expect movies to do usually, and it's that part I thought they just they freaking nailed that. So
And,
it's not my favorite movie of all time, and it's not my favorite movie of this year so far. I think Deadpool's better, but I think I'll definitely come back to it because it's a very interesting movie. It's a very it sticks with you, kind of the emotions that it brings up.
Yeah.
So the acting from one of the younger boy in the movie, I think they called him Caleb. I can't remember exactly. It was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, all the kids in general, the kid had to be 7 years old, unreal performance from a 7-year-old. And I don't want to say too much what goes on, but he did a great job. I don't know his name.
I totally agree. I think the acting was another huge highlight. The acting was out of this world.
And they had to use those accents, why are they mad? And
Yeah, the Middle English type crap.
Yeah.
So basically, you heard it here. If you look at it as a thriller, you definitely want to go see, The Witch. Right?
Sure.
Is it The Witch?
Sure.
That right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to shift over to news now. Once you guys heard what we were playing, obviously Dom has some stuff to say about what he's been playing a little bit later in the episode for his topic. So the first story here is actually a really sad story. It comes from... how did you say to pronounce her name again, Jordan?
So I'm no expert in Chinese, but to me this looks like Ziqing Wan.
So Mrs. Wan, I'll go with because I want to play it safe. She wrote over on twinfinite.net about... his name is Michael Forgey. He was the producer of Gears of War. He was the executive producer of Shadow of Mordor, the Middle-earth game. He worked on Fable. He worked on Perfect Dark Zero. This dude had a track record. Unfortunately, he passed away on March 3rd due to cancer. He was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer in May of 2015, and he had been battling it this whole time. So we just give our condolences here. He was a really good part of the industry. He worked on some phenomenal games. Gears is a great game that redefined third-person shooters, cover-based shooters. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor was a game of the year to a lot of people because of the Nemesis system? Was that the name of it? Yeah, and Fable too. He worked on a lot of things that really influenced the gaming industry. So our condolences go out to him. On a different note, some user at Reddit actually found a mural that they were painting, and it ended up being for Hearthstone, and it's the new expansion that's coming out. It's called Whispers of the Old Gods. So it sounds very menacing, sounds very Blizzard.
Whispers of the Old Gods.
Yeah, the old and the new. So it's just an image showing that it's going to be called Whispers of the Old Gods. It's going to be coming out. People are going to love it and buy it because Hearthstone can do no wrong.
I That sounds way more like a Bloodborne expansion.
Right? It sounds super menacing. It's like,
Well, it sounds like a Dark Souls expansion.
Yeah. So the next story is actually really surprising. So earlier this week, Lionhead Studios was closed down by Microsoft, and so was the studio behind Max Curse of the Brotherhood. And Sony has come out and said that whatever employees won't find jobs with Microsoft, they're actually holding a job fair in Guildford, UK, for anybody that was affected by these layoffs, and they're hoping that people can come in and land jobs with Sony over any of their studios in Europe. So props to Sony on coming in and helping out these guys who were just casualties of the industry and the way things go. And I don't really see this personally as a move of, Sony's trying to take these people to one-up Microsoft. I really think it's the industry coming together to make sure these guys, they have families, they have things that they need to get paid, and it sucks to be laid off, right? Like,
I mean, I'm sure it's like they're going to be happy with the good publicity that it brings them, but they're really trying to help people out here. I mean, like, that was a big AAA game that just kind of got... It was like taken out in the backyard and shot like a dog almost. Like,
right?
It's really sad how that game was like... It looked so promising, and, back when they showed it at E3 like 2 years ago, it was looking... not finished, but it looked great. Like, it looked like an interesting game. Maybe not everybody would love it, but something I may even play down the road,
Yeah, so this story actually comes from Mike Futter over at Game Informer, and what he wrote specifically was, the Lionhead closure wasn't the only change Microsoft made on Monday. The publisher announced it was shuttering Press Play, the developer I was talking about earlier, I just couldn't remember their name, who was buying Curse of the Brotherhood, and then their in-progress project, Knoxville, which was the one where they put up 3 different ideas and they let people vote on which one they felt they wanted to play the most.
So much for that.
Right. They should have voted for them to stay in business, Hopefully those guys, they're probably grouped into the people who, are trying to find jobs or will be retained by Microsoft. But yeah, just, these kind of things happen. The game probably wasn't what Microsoft wanted, and, with Quantum Break around the corner, they want to have these quality exclusives out there. They don't want to have another what the heck? What's the name of the PlayStation exclusive that came out last year that was not that great? No, not Knack. The one that had like a 4-hour story. What was it?
The Order, 1886.
The Order, yeah. Which, I mean, that game was beautiful, but it wasn't really. There's arguments of whether or not it was a fully done game or if it was even something worth that price point. So I think Microsoft's just trying to avoid that kind of thing, but it sucks because people lost their jobs, and that's never a good thing. Next story comes from Kotaku. Luke Plunkett writes, Bill Gates, I will look into a new Age of Empires. So he was doing an AMA on Reddit, as one does when you're Bill Gates and you have nothing but power and time. And I guess he was answering questions, and somebody wrote, Mr. Gates, can we please have another Age of Empires? Not sure if this is your department, but I figured I'd ask since you were here. Thanks. And I guess some time had passed, and he hadn't answered it. So the guy edited his comment. He said, edit, Bill, please, I know you can see this. So Gates actually responded, and he said, I will look into this. How many empires do you need? Not knowing probably what the hell the dude was talking about. But, Luke writes, well, Bill, just one would be a good start. I know there have been re-releases and expansions of Age of Empires, but the world could really do with the proper new Age of Empires. I personally am not really into RTSs, but I know that this is a really big franchise that a lot of people are diehard fans and want one back. So maybe just getting this out there, this is a bit of publicity in the sense of I doubt Bill Gates will tell somebody to start making it, but it lets people know that people want this, right?
Yeah, I think, people say that nothing ever dies at this point, like media franchise. And it's totally true, but I don't think it should be. Like, just because you can bring back Age of Empires, do we necessarily need that? Like, there's Total War and Warhammer, all these
even
these
Halo
games,
Wars
like,
coming out. Halo Wars 2, I think, is going to be launching this year. So
yeah, I think honestly, if Age of Empires was that great, I think it would have survived. I think there's been that niche through line of strategy games forever, so I don't think it would have gone away if that were the case. XCOM.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that some things should just be left the way they are. And here's the thing: is like if they do come out with the new game, right, of Age of Empires, and it isn't what people want, then they're gonna complain. Why did you do this to my franchise? So it's kind of like a lose-lose, or a
Right.
win-win depending on what happens. But
I will say that's one of the only strategy games I've ever played, and I did enjoy some of those old games on PC back when I was a youngin.
a
So
youngin.
I wouldn't be like ticked if they came back with one, because I'm sure like there's never a strategy game that really even like catches my eye, so I'm not even worried about
People
it.
just want them PC exclusives. No, I'm just
Yep,
kidding.
exactly.
So this story is actually, I would consider, one of the biggest stories, if not the biggest story for today. And CD Projekt Red, our guys over there who make the densest of games, they stated that they have a new game this year, and more than 20 million copies of the Witcher games have been sold. This comes also from Mike Futter at Game Informer, and he writes, CD Projekt Red has announced its strategic plans for the coming 5 years, giving us an idea of where the studio is heading. In 2011, CD Projekt Red expected that its games would have sold 10 million copies. To date, the trilogy sold twice that. Then he goes on to say that Cyberpunk 2077, which will arrive no earlier than 2017, is going to be 5 times the size of Witcher, which is kind of crazy to me. But this game that's going to be coming out this year, it says, the developer says, a new type of video game format previously unexplored by the studio. With mobile games already under its belt, we're left to wonder where this venture will take them. Maybe a VR game? That might be too crazy to think of, but what do you guys think this game's going to be this year? It's pretty interesting. If it's
Gwent.
something they haven't touched, like, what can that be?
I gotta agree with Dominic. I think that it's got to be Gwent. I mean,
iOS and
they're
Android.
yeah, exactly. They're obviously working on Cyberpunk 2077. If it's going to be 5 times bigger than The Witcher, then they're going to have to work on it until 2025. It's going to be 2077 before the game comes out. essentially.
So, do you think they'll have a
But
presence at E3 where they kind of do the Bethesda thing where they're like,
no. That's what I'm saying is like they have a big AAA game that they're working on, big RPG. This is for them to just like bring out a game this year. I'm like 95% sure it's Gwent.
well, no, what I was going to say is, so you know how Bethesda announced Fallout 4 and then they're like, here's this mobile game you can download now. What if they did that?
Yeah.
Like, what if they talked about Cyberpunk 2077 and they're like, we have something to hold you over until then. All of you Witcher fans, download Gwent right now on iOS and Android,
For free.
If that happened, I would just be so happy, man.
Right? It's such an interesting thing, like, that a card game in a video game, a game in a game is so popular that people want a tangible, well, I guess not tangible, it's on your phone still, but you can play it on its own without having to be in Witcher, so.
So I mean, they were a smaller studio, right? I mean,
Well, yeah, but with the recent success, they've probably,
right, brought in a ton of cash on Witcher 3. So yeah, I'd imagine they're looking to, expand exponentially. But yeah, to have something this quick, can't imagine it's anything big.
Well, also, like, there's a rumor going around that they've stated that they want to be one of the big 3. Like, they want to be up there, be known with, like, the Bethesdas and stuff like that. So, their craftsmanship is almost unmatched. They, in my opinion, I think they make great games, and I think they're one of the most underappreciated studios out there. So,
I totally agree. Honestly, I was telling you guys that, I played like over 200 hours of The Witcher and did every single thing, but I didn't touch Gwent, and it's because the night that it came out, they released it early for digital, and I started playing, and my game kept crashing because there's like, part of like the tutorial area of the game is you playing your first Gwent game,
yeah.
and every time this guy would try to give me a card at the end of the Gwent game, and it would crash the game. So I kind of just had to like avoid that and get around it. And so then I didn't get the trophy for that Gwent card, and so I couldn't get the trophy for getting all the Gwent cards, which meant that I couldn't get the platinum unless I
Well, that sucks.
I basically have to get the platinum on my New Game Plus, which is okay. I'll play The Witcher another time, but because of that, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna leave Gwent for New Game Plus when I'm kind of just like not. I wasn't rushing through The Witcher, but I was like
Making sure
obviously
you get
trying
it done. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to like play the game and kind of like move on. So I was like, I'll play Gwent some other time. So I'm excited. If it is just Gwent by itself, that would be perfect because you don't have to go through the whole like loading up your character, loading up the game, and being on your PS4, you can play it anywhere. I think they should have done this, last summer when
It should have launched with the game, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, congrats to CD Projekt Red for, getting ready to have a lot more money in the coming years.
Mm-hmm.
The last story here comes from Kotaku. It's from Brian Ashcraft, and he writes, a brief update on Zelda Wii U. So, E.G. Anuma, I believe is how you pronounce it, was asked how, Zelda Wii U's development is going, and he basically replied, busy. And continuing with that, he said, when we did Skyward Sword for the Wii, at the end of stages of development, I was in charge of the characters, dialogue, and the in-game text. And now as well, it's like it was then. I had to work on text today too, he said with a laugh. But the game has really taken shape and things have gotten easier. That means things are progressing well. According to Anuma, the keyword this time is something new. Ocarina of Time was a huge leap for the Zelda series, and since then, Anuma explained, I think the base of our secret sauce has always been Ocarina of Time, but this time, the change in flavor will be like going from Japanese food to Western-style food. So, Western-style RPG. Perhaps players will be surprised. Please look forward to it, because I think we'll be able to make it something new, like Ocarina of Time was. So, obviously there's tons of fans with Ocarina of Time, and I think this gets a lot of people excited. I believe you were saying, right, Dom, you read this article and it really got your blood flowing for this new Zelda game?
Absolutely pumped, yes.
It's it's strange that he worded it like that. Jordan, we were talking about this earlier. Oh, he said from Japanese style food to Western style food. He could have just come out and said it, Japanese style RPG to Western style RPG. Like, he could have just said it, but he said it without saying it, which is weird.
Yeah. Well, I think, like Dom, I'm excited to see that. I think that obviously the Zelda franchise needs something fresh and new.
Yeah.
Twilight Princess, people had their stuff about that game, and obviously Skyward Sword wasn't received nearly as well as I'm sure they wanted it to be. And it's kind of like Final Fantasy, right now Final Fantasy is like kind of hanging in the balance. Like, is it still a big franchise? Do people still care about this? And people will always care about Zelda, but they need to be careful about, like, the next Zelda that comes out needs to be an awesome game, is essentially what I'm saying,
Thanks again, everyone, for watching and or listening. If you like what you heard, be sure to give those like and subscribe buttons a quick click. Every little contribution can help to make our channel grow. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at CTRLINT. That's Controlled Interest. See you later.